Hey, so this video is sort of a, how to put it, I would like to kind of go into what we were discussing about maps and territories. I think it deserves a video in its own right, because there's a lot to talk about. So, um, I guess this is almost a continuation of my response video to Thou Art That. Um, you guys have made some those two response videos are great. I just like to go over our the meaning of maps and territories and sort of explore this because it's very important. I mean, if you think of what a map is, it is a means to convey that which is beyond words. I mean, like something which is experiential. It's the way to bridge the gap between two people. I mean, we both have this inner dimension that we experience, and we relate to that through our words. And I mean, yes, arguably, and I believe there are other forms of communication that are more direct. Um, I guess you could say this is more the psychic, subtle level of development that everybody can share and have, peak experiences in. But for the most part, we speak, we talk, and these are maps in themselves. This discussion right now is a map, and we're kind of bridging the gap between our, our minds. And this is sort of like, something that evolution has amazingly developed, the ability to communicate to such a complex level, to be able to relate experiences and not just, instincts. But anyway, um, so there's nothing wrong with maps. I mean, we need them in order to speak to each other. We need them in order to get around and to explore. And if I find something about my inner experience and I want to convey it to you, I'm going to need this map to tell you what that is. But there are also problems with maps, of course. There are inherent limitations. The map is not the territory, of course. But that's basically the dangers in any kind of map building process. To some degree, if you make the map too good, actually no, I guess if you make the map um, good but also captivating, the map can sometimes override the territory to the point where we end up talking more about the map and relating more about experiencing that map, um, such as developmental maps or integral maps, or some people can get too attached to the map and lose sight of the territory that it's talking about. So it's not that maps are bad necessarily. It's not that they're good either. They're tools that help us learn. And I think this third way is a good way to put it. I would not go all the way out and say we need, maps are all good or maps are all bad, but they're sort of tools. They're developmental tools that we have evolved to be able to convey and communicate. But we also have to remember that they're road signs. They're really, you know, they're really just directions. It's Wilbur even basically admitted, this is just maps. They're laughable in the face of emptiness and primordial awareness, which is great. But I mean, basically, we're saying Wilbur and a lot of the other theorists and the sages and the mystics. I mean, they're like MapQuest version to enlightenment. Like you want to keep it as comprehensive as you can. You want it to be a great map, but at the same time, you also want to balance out that greatness of that map um, with appreciation of the real territory. So you can't let it sort of inhibit our own spiritual or developmental progress, which it can do at times. Instead, it's sort of like a lighthouse on our own journey. You know what I mean? It's sort of it's important to have a balance, so we're not entirely like just staring at a map the whole time and missing out on everything. And I don't think that's what we're necessarily doing or what you're doing, but it's just one thing to be careful about, especially on spiritual journeys, because at times we fall back into that fallacy of subject and object. I, the subject, wish to become enlightened through this object, the map, or through this object, this guru. And I know they say gurus can be good. I know Wilbur supports the gurus, but I take a more skeptical, I guess you could say, point of view. And it's not that I don't appreciate what they're doing, but it's good to keep it in check. Um, but I guess different times call for different approaches. I mean, some people may need that map a lot more than I personally do, and they need that map as sort of like a stepping stone. But remember, it's always just a stepping stone, for the actual experience. It's a teacher, but don't get caught up in the teacher, or you'll miss the taught. You miss the teaching, which is the finger pointing to the finger is pointing to the moon, as Wei Wei says. Or so, nothing wrong with maps. Maps are good, but they're a little tricky. That's really what I think it comes down to. So I'd love to get your perspective on this. Why are maps, tricky? Well, I think it's because they're highly conceptual, which is great. It's another aspect of our awareness, but the trick is that a lot of these teachings are often trans-rational. They go beyond the concepts, even the integral concepts. They 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 rest in this primordial awareness, this grounding, and it's a process to evolve into understanding that and not needing the maps anymore. And I understand that it's a tricky process, because I mean I've had friends who have gotten into say spiral dynamics, and begin seeing everything and saying everything through spiral dynamics. I hear red, green, blue, and it can help, but I feel like it can also be intoxicating. Words can be confusing, they can cloud our direct perceiving. So instead of negatively seeing words, I guess I could say I like to take a balanced third way point of view, I guess integral point of view about words and maps and territories. We can stay, I guess you could say the middle way is just resting in awareness and seeing both as complementary. Well, resting in awareness and seeing maps as sort of the guiding force through that territory, through the map, and which I think is what you were saying. But I guess my emphasis is just be careful, just be careful with the maps, or else you'll get too caught up. Any of us can get too caught up. I mean, I know at some points when I was reading over intensively, there are some points where I was starting to think through the map, and which is fine, I didn't end up getting stuck, but some people get stuck. So it's just a danger because, but I guess you can't really make everything entirely safe either. I mean, some people will have to have that. I mean, like with any kind of tool, some people will not be able to use it correctly, and we're just gonna have to accept that. So instead, we have to make this tool as safe as possible, without sacrificing its effectiveness. So I understand that. I think that's about it. Yeah, I think that's it. So, be great if you made a response video. Give me your thoughts. I'm all ears. Thanks for listening.